What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Ready Gold Standard podcast. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn. Matt, Sunday afternoon, I'm bringing you guys a show a little early. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. It's another week. The first week of free agency was pretty crazy. A lot of things went down. We're here to talk about most of them. One thing didn't go down, which we will address also. But let's not start off with that. Let's start off with the big splash signing that the 49ers were able to make.
Yeah, exactly. Before we get into it all, head over to youtube.com/49ers Hive, guys. Tune in on our YouTube channel. The stream there will be the first one on our videos. That way you can share and we can actually see and interact with your comments. If you're commenting on Twitter, we're not ignoring you. We just cannot see it the way Twitter streaming is set up. So make sure you go to our YouTube channel so you can interact and join the conversation. The biggest news definitely has to be the 49ers signing former Chiefs cornerback Tarvarius Ward to a pretty big deal. He had kind of a funny intro press conference we can get into a little later, but were you surprised by this deal, Matt? It kind of came out of nowhere, I feel like.
The deal itself came out of nowhere, but there were rumors that he was on their radar. I think they were attached to just about every free agent cornerback that was going to come on the market. A lot of people wanted J.C. Jackson. I knew right off the bat that he was going to be out of reach just because of the money that he was going to command. The Chargers gave him a gigantic deal. That was not something the 49ers were going to be able to do. And it was a little bit surprising considering the other moves or lack of moves that they had made when the signing was announced. It kind of led us to believe that something was going to happen that didn't happen. And all in all, I think it's a good signing for them to shore up a position of need. And that's what we wanted them to do going into this offseason. It's kind of shore up the roster, bolster the weak points, maybe get another, weapon or two, a luxury item or something for the 2022 season for presumably Trey Lance. And this to me was a pretty good signing in terms of a balance between the talent level that you're getting and the money that you were giving up for it.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, they were kind of connected to just about every free agent cornerback in this year's free agency period. So he was signed to a 3-year deal with a max value of $42 million. The base value of the deal is $40 million. And I think most importantly, his base salary in 2022 this year is only $1.035 million, which escalates next year, 2023, to $13.5 million and then $12.56 million in 2024. So again, Farag kind of manipulated the numbers to where 2022 is not that big of an issue to sign a player like Tarvarius Ward. And yeah, Tommy Huxley said Ward is more consistent than JC. He has less picks though. His introductory press conference, they were kind of asking him, do you feel like you're more suited to play outside, inside, in the slot? And he was like, look, I've played everywhere, wherever DeMeco Ryans wants me to play is where I'm willing to play and comfortable playing. I think he's going to be a pretty good corner for the 49ers and a solid number one that automatically bumps Mosley down to number 2, which is kind of what we were saying the past year or two, that Mosley's a solid 2 corner. But when the Niners are asking him to cover teams, the opposing team's best receiver, it's just, you're asking a little much of the guy. So I'm excited for it. Also, you got the now sophomores coming in and Lenore and Thomas, who hopefully can continue to build on somewhat promising rookie years.
Yeah.
Were you surprised at all that immediately Lakin goes to New York and then a couple of days later DJ goes to Denver?
No, I kind of expected the losses. Lakin kind of like I said last time, kind of played himself out of here. He was just a little bit too good. The contract that he got, good for him. I mean, he got his money, and it's a situation where the 49ers are going to have to try to, fill that hole. And, I know there's talk of Banks doing it or something like that, but man, it's, you can't just let it rock. It has to be something, whether it's through the draft or whether you wait for the free agent dust to settle a little bit more. I mean, the guard and center free agency class is a little bit deeper than it normally is. There are players to be had out there. It's just a matter of what you can get. And I think that is going to take a little bit longer to play out. This first wave of free agency happens, and now it's kind of like most of the big names are gone, minus somebody like Tyrann Mathieu, who's still out there. But I think the dominoes are going to start to fall a little more slowly as we approach the draft, and that's going to be something the 49ers are going to have to take a look at, whether they address it in the draft or wait to see if there's an impact veteran or at least an above average veteran that's not getting the tires kicked, and they can kind of offer him a lower salary deal. They seem to fill their roster with a lot of these 1-year deals on aging vets to try to just fill holes temporarily. So I expect more of the same. DJ Jones, I mean, for $10 million per year, he wasn't going to be here. So it's a little bit of a wound to hear him say that he wanted to go to Denver because of Russell Wilson, but that one was a little hurt. Maybe a little shade at Jimmy Garoppolo, to be honest, but yeah, I've been good for him getting his money, and good luck to him staying healthy because I know that's been a struggle for him the last couple of years.
Yeah, when I saw that quote, him basically saying, "Oh, well, as soon as I saw Russ come here, I knew it was the place I had to be." Paraphrasing, of course, but I was just like, "Oof, that does hurt." I took it as a shot against what the Niners have, not necessarily Jimmy, but maybe he feels, "Hey, Russ is the proven asset. I know I can go there. I know what I can get from him." Whether Trey might still be a little bit of a question mark because he only played a couple games last year. Jimmy is Jimmy. I don't think we even have to go into that any further. Another, I don't want to say splash, but I would say good signing for the 49ers was special team receiver Ray McLeod from the Steelers. Yep. Did this surprise you at all? Because the 49ers looked to have been kind of bolstering their special teams unit, and they got the guy who's arguably the best at returning kicks that at least was a free agent this year.
Right. No, not a surprise to me. Their special teams were amongst the worst in the league last year, and we talked about it. The reason why they were able to sneak past the Packers is as bad as the 49ers were, the Packers were dead last in terms of special teams, and they knew they had to address that position. Ray McLeod is a good pickup. They're going to have to work on him with ball security a little bit. He has 11 fumbles in the last 4 years, which is kind of a lot. And let's not sleep on George Odom, who is one of the best special teamers in the NFL and who's going to get some duty at safety, it sounds like. I know we were talking about, in our chat that everybody was saying from Indianapolis, like, man, he's like such a good special teamer. And if he would have got more snaps at safety, he could have been a player. You never know. So with those two signings, particularly Ray McLeod, because that's going to help out the offense in terms of field position, you're looking at a 49ers team that knows, hey, listen, Richard Hightower is gone. We got a new guy coming in. We cannot be as bad as we were. Special teams matters. It's the reason why I think that when Johnny Hekker was released, that people were like, hey, maybe we sign Johnny Hekker and move on from Wish, just because you need to win that field position battle. It's the little things. Every yard counts. And by bolstering the special teams, you're actually setting the offense and the defense up in better positions on every drive. So I think it was going to be a focus of the 49ers throughout this offseason. And they seem like they've done a pretty good job of addressing that.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the fumbles because Ray McLeod, he has had a lot, and Kyle Shanahan's MO has kind of been, if you turn the ball over, you're not going to see some play for a little bit. Yeah, exactly. So
ask Matt Breida.
Yeah, exactly. Now he got shipped to Miami pretty quickly after riding the bench after that pretty promising start to his year. But I do think the 49ers are signing these players where their main weaknesses are that they probably feel they can't address with their draft picks. A lot of people, like you said, were upset they didn't get a guy like, first there's JC Jackson, and then the other one from Carolina trade from, I can't think of his name right now. Former Patriot cornerback. Stephon Gilmore. Thank you. A lot of people were expecting him because there were rumors that he wanted to go home to California. I know the Vegas Raiders are kind of going back and forth with the media about being super close to signing him. These are the players that the 49ers were just about always going to sign this offseason. The players that aren't going to go break the bank and that also can contribute still in a key way moving forward. My question for you, Matt, does Jimmy Garoppolo still being on the roster, the fact that he was not traded prior to the start of free agency, did that impede their ability to sign any free agents that they wanted to sign?
I mean, it definitely did. His cap number is what it is, and it's unfortunate because, it's continuing a controversy and it's continuing a split amongst the fan base that could have been addressed. The longer he sits, the more I guess everybody's coming to the realization, if they didn't realize it already, that nobody really wants him. You know, he's not a hot commodity. I mean, it's one domino after another. Carson Wentz goes over him. He gets moved first. Mitch Trubisky gets signed to a deal in Pittsburgh before he gets moved. The Russell Wilson trade opened up a spot in Seattle, but they're like, no, I think we're going to be interested in Drew Lock. And now that Deshaun Watson has fallen to Cleveland and Baker Mayfield might be on the move, now Baker's jumped Jimmy Garoppolo in line. That's not even to speak of Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota, who are still on the free agent market. I mean, the 49ers are sitting here looking, and I said it the other day when it was Case Keenum got traded to the Bills for a 7th. You know, if the 49ers have to outright release Jimmy Garoppolo, that just shows you how much the front office here, John and Kyle and, whoever else, overplayed their hand with Jimmy Garoppolo. If we believe Middlecoff that there was a second rounder on the deal and they didn't jump on that, then they shot themselves in the foot and they created a mess of this situation that they could have avoided completely. And you're stuck in a situation where if nobody wants Jimmy Garoppolo and you just release him and nobody signs him, you're on the hook for that injury guarantee. You have to, if you're going to release him, it has to be with the thought that maybe somebody will pick him up. But the 49ers have zero leverage in this situation. And now they're stuck. Maybe they missed out on a guy that would have helped out the team, whether that be on the offensive line, whether that be another member of the secondary, another corner that they could have used, or maybe guys that they're still looking at and trying to figure out, man, how do we get enough money on the books? I mean, they had to restructure Kittle. They had to restructure Armstead to get the guys that they signed already. And they still have a ton of free agents that they have to bring back. There's a ton of turnover on this roster, and they're going to have to figure it out. At his current cap deal, there's no way they can carry Jimmy Garoppolo in the 2022 season. It just makes zero sense. You're creating, again, more turmoil and division in both the fan base and your locker room. You're putting Trey on the outs. If you keep Jimmy Garoppolo, you're making Trey feel like you don't trust him. This situation is a mess, and they're going to have to figure it out. And they're not doing it right now. And it's getting out there. Maybe after Baker Mayfield is moved, that's when, something can go down. But as it stands right now, they've done, frankly, a piss poor job of handling this situation.
I agree 100%. And I like the way you put it, is that they very well could have kind of overplayed their hand. They could have overestimated Jimmy Garoppolo's value. And it very well could be the case that playing him this year actually hurt his value more than helped. Or at the very least didn't do anything. It didn't change it, good or worse. It's a very unfortunate situation because the 49ers, and I know a lot of fans, I see Twitter every day, we're expecting, there are people going out there saying they could probably get a first, no problem, from a desperate enough team. And I said this in the chat the other day, John Lynch in February is probably negotiating, throw in a starter and a second, and we got a deal. And now he's probably like, hey, what if we cover his flight costs and you just throw us a 7th? Like, they're in a very unfortunate situation with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yep.
And I've seen a lot of people say that him being on the roster has not necessarily impeded their ability to sign any free agents that they would have wanted to sign. But we can't prove that. It's like trying to prove a negative. Like, you can't. I think it did impede their ability, because there could have been players that could have been huge signings.
Anybody saying that is just being dishonest, because if you subtract his cap number, then you obviously have more money, right? The moves, if Jimmy Garoppolo's contract is essentially in a vacuum, because they can make all the other moves to sign free agents and stuff like that. But then you get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, they can still make all those other moves to get further under the cap. But now you have the Jimmy Garoppolo wiggle room. So that to me is a non-starter. And, we're talking about trying to get a ham sandwich for Jimmy Garoppolo. There's just not enough jobs in the NFL. There's really not. Even in a weak quarterback class, who's to say that somebody like Seattle, rather than going after a 30-year-old Jimmy Garoppolo with a $27 million contract this year, who's on the last year of his contract, oft injured, who's to say that they don't just go, well, let's let it rock with Drew Lock and we'll use pick number 9 on Malik Willis or something like that. We're not even addressing the guys in the draft, even though it's a weak draft. There are too many there are too many people on the open market and not enough jobs for those people. And someone's going to get lost in the shuffle. And this is a real shot across the bow to all the Jimmy wins people, because it seems like the NFL doesn't give a shit that Jimmy Garoppolo wins. It seems like they're like, you know, maybe that's more of a byproduct of the team rather than Jimmy Garoppolo. And it's a harsh pill for 49er fans to swallow, but Jimmy Garoppolo is obviously going to look real good next to Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard and Brian Hoyer, whereas the rest of the league looks around him and has the eyeball for, well, how does he look against Matt Stafford or a Kyler Murray or a Russell Wilson or an Aaron Rodgers or whoever else? He just looks thoroughly pedestrian when you put up the numbers. I hear people saying, oh, well, Matt Ryan, you know, why is Matt Ryan getting looks? I don't know either. They're like statistical twins this year. The only thing I can think of is that Matt Ryan stays healthy. But Jimmy Garoppolo is not a hot commodity, and it's pretty ugly, man. This is a bad situation.
I agree. And also his contract. I mean, Albert Breer kind of tweeted out yesterday, and a lot of 49ers fans were like, is this kind of related to the Jimmy Garoppolo situation? But when Robert Woods was traded to Tennessee, Albert Breer tweeted, related on Woods, not enough people on here realize how big a factor a player's contract is in what a team is able to get for him.
Yep.
And Jimmy Garoppolo's contract is tough to move. It's tough to deal with moving forward. Like you said, teams would rather sign a Mitch Trubisky, Jameis Winston. It seems like they're able to they're more comfortable rolling the dice on these players who aren't going to cost as much money and also cost a draft pick to acquire. I tweeted out yesterday, our guy Niners Sickness from the Niners Sickness podcast said, you know, maybe it's not a bad idea to keep Jimmy on the Niners. If the contract isn't an issue, maybe they could make it work. But I kind of replied saying, I think a lot of fans aren't taking into consideration the personal relationship these players have with Jimmy Garoppolo. Time and time again, we saw them come out on podcasts, on shows, and they're all saying, oh, Jimmy's a leader. Jimmy's, you know, the guy we're willing to, you know, roll with Jimmy, whoever the quarterback is next season. And, you know, they're kind of doing the double speak PR talk, but still, I think there's an underlying truth there that they do have a level of commitment and loyalty to Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think it would be a huge mistake if the 49ers are somehow forced to carry Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster next season. Just like you said earlier, Matt, the divide that would happen between Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. Does Jimmy start if he's on the roster, even though we were supposed to hand the keys over to the kid? It's just tough. It really is tough. I think worst case, they might have to cut their loss and just cut him. Do you see that even being a possibility?
It's a tough one. Again, you have to take into account the injury guarantee that he has, and you know how that's going to play, right? Because you talk him up like, oh, he's such a leader, and then you cut him. They're caught between a rock and a hard place. There's really they're going to have to try and get whatever they can for him. At this point, I'd be like, man, if you can get a 6th rounder for him, just trade him, just get him off the books. You don't have to worry about it. Unfortunately, you know, the injury situation was a big mess. And there's a disconnect between Don Yee and the 49ers. And, you know, that's not to say, even at this point, maybe Don Yee wants to force the 49ers' hand at some point and be like, get this guy out of here. You know, this is not the place for him. Because at the end of the day, the 49ers eventually are going to go with Trey Lance, whether Jimmy's on the roster or not. There's just too much sunk cost into what they had to trade for Trey Lance that they're going to have to give it a shot. They're going to have to be like, look, we have to see what we have in this kid, whether Jimmy's there or not. And if Jimmy doesn't see the field or Jimmy doesn't, you know, whatever, that he's not going to get another opportunity. We've seen it time and time again. And maybe Jimmy Garoppolo is content to play out the $27 million that he has left on his contract. But for me, the sooner he gets moved, it's better for both parties. I don't understand what the issue is. And if maybe Don Yee forces the 49ers to cut him so that he has an opportunity to kind of go where he wants. The only problem with that is he's not going to get the money that he got before.
Definitely not. Tommy's saying cut Jimmy and get a comp 3rd round pick. If they release him, it doesn't count against the comp, right? Like they're not able to get a comp pick if a player is outright released. I thought it was only free agents that walk and don't re-sign. Maybe I'm wrong here though.
The whole comp structure is weird.
It is weird. I thought somebody in the chat, our last show, was saying only if a player is a free agent that chooses not to return, because it's kind of the team's choice to release a player. I don't think that they would then be rewarded with a compensation pick.
Yeah, because people get released all the time. That'd be comp picks
Exactly.
left and
Yeah.
right. The NFL draft would never end.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah. So there's just been a lot of this drama going on around Jimmy. I think all of us thought it would be over by now. I know I for sure thought a week into free agency he would surely be on another team, but here we are. Jimmy's still on the roster. I'm not even sure it has been reported that much teams have interest in him. So it is what it is.
It's funny because at the beginning of free agency, we were all like, all right, when's Jimmy getting traded? When's Jimmy getting traded? When's Jimmy getting traded? And now we're just like, he might not get traded, so whatever.
What's funny too, like you said, because even Jimmy himself was coming out in that last press conference. He's like, yeah, we're trying to find the right place for me. And it's like, you might have to take any place for you at this point. Your no trade clause is waived, or it expired, it doesn't exist anymore. Excuse me. Now the Niners might have to just take what they can get.
Yeah.
Overseas Niner says, why would a team give up a pick and cap space to, quote, upgrade to a mid-tier quarterback? They should have taken whatever offer was on the table and moved on. Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, you were just hoping that a team like Pittsburgh would see enough in Jimmy Garoppolo to be like, look, we can still make a run if we decide to draft somebody like Kenny Pickett who or Malik Willis. Maybe they need to sit for a year. And Jimmy becomes the bridge just like he was for Trey Lance. But it's obvious that they overplayed their hand big time. Big time.
Yep. That's clear. It is unfortunate, but that's clear. So some of the other news, not necessarily with the 49ers, but in the NFC West, you mentioned it earlier, Matt, Russell Wilson is gone.
Yep.
How happy are you, first of all, before we even get into that we will no longer have to see him twice a year?
I mean, it was a long time coming, and I'm actually surprised that Pete Carroll wants to be on board for a rebuild. I mean, given his age, given the fact that as soon as they ushered Russell Wilson, his the printer was still warm printing his ticket out of town, and then all of a sudden it was like they were serving Bobby Wagner his walking papers. There was rumors that they might not be opposed if somebody offers them a good deal for DK Metcalf. This is a team that is. This is a full-blown rebuild. They're going to be the worst team in the division for the better part of a decade unless they somehow immediately turn around and strike it rich on a quarterback, which I just doubt because Seattle drafts terribly. So, I mean, you're looking at bottom feeders, just like they were when they were in the AFC West, just like what they were when they first transitioned into the 49ers division. This Seattle has been a perennial bottom feeder. And for all those 12s out there who only remember the last 10 years, this is your team's history and you're reliving it. So good luck to them. I'm not sad at seeing the Seahawks down on their luck, particularly after how they treated Navarro Bowman with that knee injury. Just a classless fan base. I couldn't be happier that the 12s are going to have years, maybe 12 years of struggle. So it's a bittersweet pill for them to swallow, but they better learn to like the taste of it.
I agree. I couldn't be happier seeing it because they were so, I don't really know the word to put it without being a little disrespectful. Obnoxious, yes. Boisterous. It's like they need to take it down a notch, be humbled, because the fact that they had Russell Wilson really saved them from being a poverty franchise over the last decade. He did so much for that franchise, and they did absolutely nothing to repay him. And as much as I think of him as a total goof and dork, he is a fantastic player, and it sucked the 49ers. I mean, I can think of one good win, which obviously came in 2019 in Seattle. Every other time, I mean, I think he lost, 2 or 3 times against the Niners in his career?
Yeah.
So it's insane, and I'm just so glad he's no longer there. They have, like you said, Drew Lock. Maybe they're going to draft a kid, but it's going to be a tough stretch for all Seahawks fans coming up. And
I'll tell you this, the days of the NFC West being the best division of football are over, because the AFC West, that's an arms race, man. I mean, you're talking Devontae Adams to the Raiders. You're talking Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson to the Chargers. You're talking the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. And you're looking at Denver, who's made some splash deals with Russell Wilson, with DJ Jones. I mean, Now maybe we get to see Jerry Jeudy at his full potential because of how the Broncos are. The Broncos already have a really, really good defense with Bradley Chubb on the defensive end and that whole group. The AFC West, I mean, it's going to be a war of attrition. And you know, they might the winner of that division might be a 10-7 team, but they'll be the best 10-7, most battle-tested 10-7 team you'll see. It's going to be a slugfest. It's going to be fun to watch. But for the 49ers, man, it becomes almost like a two-team race between them and the Rams. Sorry, little child Kyler Murray and Cliff Crappy Kingsbury, but they don't do it for me. They're going to be third place. But, you know, the NFC West has lost its claim to best division of football, which is kind of to the 49ers benefit a little bit, I feel like.
Yeah. 100%. And also, you know, it's like you said, just looking at the quarterbacks in the AFC West is insane. You get Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, now Russell Wilson, and Derek Carr. If Carr is your worst quarterback in your division, that's a tough division, man.
Tough division, yeah.
Very tough. Meanwhile, still in the NFC West, you mentioned Kyler Murray. He's had a very interesting offseason. First, he kind of removed everything out of his Instagram page. Make of that what you will. You know, offseason storylines kind of BS. But I saw Brent Albright going into it with kind of Brad from the SF Niners talking about whether or not it's a marketing campaign, social media strategy, new PR team. But then it kind of started to see these actual reports coming out that Kyler is unhappy, and he kind of felt like the team isn't doing right by him. He wants a fat contract. And then the reports coming out saying that he quit on the team in that playoff game towards the end. He needs to learn how to be a leader. We heard people, very, very well-respected leaders from Cardinals history kind of coming out and saying that. Is there trouble brewing in the desert, Matt?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They committed to Cliff Kingsbury, but I felt like they had to kind of try to appease Kyler. And even after the initial stuff came out, there was a report the other day that his agent was saying Kyler's not happy with how the Cardinals have approached free agency. And it's at some point or another, you got to be like, hey, dude, you need to shut up. You know, like he's acting like he is the team. And to me, that's going to lead to disaster. When you have these little infighting and stuff like that, I mean, just look at last year with Seattle, right? Russell Wilson in the offseason's like, I want to be traded. I'm not happy. They tried to appease him, and it led to a losing season for them. I anticipate more of the same with the Cardinals. If you have this much strife and turmoil in the offseason, it's only going to carry over. I mean, when you're not around each other and you're having this much problems, now imagine being stuck face to face with each other every day, right? Looking around the locker room, being like, man, I should have this, man, I should have that, man, I want this contract, I want that contract. And it probably doesn't help that he sees Matthew Stafford getting his 4-year $160 or Deshaun Watson getting a 5-year $230 fully guaranteed contract. You know, all these other guys are getting paid. And he's like, wait, what about me? When the team is looking like we don't want to give you that contract because you haven't proved that you're a leader. And we have serious questions about your ability to lead a team and your maturity level. You know, and same thing with a guy like Baker Mayfield, who Cleveland is like, we want an adult at quarterback, you know, and it's one of those things where it's not going to be good. So I expect Arizona to be down there with Seattle in the worst place in the division, just because of the way that they haven't really signed a lot of people in free agency. They lost Chandler Jones, and now you're looking at a team that has a disgruntled quarterback. So not good.
Yep. Fernando says, I bet Matt is happy that Raheem Mostert is not on this team anymore.
I knew he wasn't going to be on this team anymore.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of being happy. Like, I wish, you know, Mostert health and all that good stuff. I'm not counting on it. And I don't think that this team needs him. So.
Agreed. And I think when we've talked about it countless times, he's living off of that 2019 championship game performance. And that's kind of what's in fans' mind, because the year after that, if I remember correctly, he was out for most of the year or all of the year.
He missed like 14 games. Yeah.
And then obviously this past season, after week 1, he was out for the rest of the year. So it's like fans
he had 2 carries.
Yeah, 2 carries. That's right. That's it. And fans got that taste of excellence in the championship game. And they're just like, oh no, he just needs to get back healthy. That's the anomaly. That's not the standard with Raheem Mostert, in my
It's
opinion.
the same reason why people are still fond of 7.
Yep.
Because of that Super Bowl year.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Tommy says Cliff Dingleberry is definitely the worst coach in the NFC West.
Yeah.
Would
He's
you put
the
him?
worst.
Yeah. Pete's
He's the
more
worst.
accomplished.
Pete has a Super Bowl win, and he's a multi-time national championship winner at college. So,
yep. Tommy says Raheem at least Stark got a pay raise for being on 4 plays. What the fuck, man?
right.
Yeah,
Crazy.
It's crazy.
But it's a 1-year prove-it deal. So,
22 allegations coming to Cleveland. Yeah, that's pretty crazy that they were able to. They said they did extensive background information, whatever that means, or comprehensive.
All I know is that Watson's agent is a genius, where he converted this 2022 year into only $1 million of base salary, which means that if he gets suspended for any of this stuff, that's the pool of money of game checks that he's going to miss. That's crazy.
Yep.
Oh no, I'm good. I'm good, Fernando. You didn't upset me. It was never like my issue with Mostert was holding the team up for money. Now that he's gone, it's like, okay, well, I mean, hey, if you have success, you have success.
I agree. It's not personal.
No,
it's nothing personal. It's just I feel like
again, it's overrated. Always the name on the front rather than the name on the back. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah. Are you, speaking of kind of overrated, oft injured? I use that term lightly, overrated, but Jason Veret still out there, still on the cornerback free agency market.
They're going to bring him back.
You think so?
I think so. They're going to bring him back on like a vet minimum deal. That's all he's ever going to get at this point is a vet minimum deal. He's proven to be too oft injured. I mean, now you're looking at Ward, Mosley, and then you have Thomas and Lenore. If you bring back Veret as maybe you draft a guy in like the 4th round, right? Or you bring back Veret or whatever, and he comes back to form and he plays really well. Then you have Ward and Veret on the outside, and you're rolling. All of a sudden, it's a position of strength, right? You're rolling deep with those guys. If he doesn't turn out, you've signed Ward and you've made enough moves that it's not a weakness of the position, and you're not beholden to Veret being the cornerback 1 like they did this past season, where Veret gets injured week 1 and it's like, well, now what do we do? You know, he had such a great 2020 that everybody was like, oh man, Veret, he's cornerback 1. He's put this stuff behind him. And my thing was always like, people who have these type of lower body injuries over and over and over again, you don't get more healthy as you age, right? So to me, it was always a matter of when. And that's why when people were like, we need to sign Veret to a multi-year deal, I was like, do not sign him to anything more than a 1-year deal. And I still think the same thing holds true. And I still think that they bring him back on a 1-year deal. It's too easy not to, right? He knows the system. And when healthy, he's very good.
I agree. And like you said, if he's not doesn't have the weight of being the number 1 cornerback, if the 49ers aren't banking on him staying healthy for 17 games now, I think he's a solid option to come back.
Right.
Depth is huge.
From the team's aspect, right? Because he's always going to want to be like, hey, I'm the man, I can do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But from the team's aspect, they don't have to be like, man, we need Veret to be the number 1 guy.
Exactly.
It's like, if he turns out and he's good, better for us. But if he doesn't, then no big deal. We can work with it.
Exactly. I mean, last season we saw what happened when they did do that. They signed Veret, not to a big deal, but they signed him for a 1-year kind of prove it deal. And then Mosley was kind of like, okay, you're our number 2. Veret goes down immediately, and Mosley's then elevated to number 1, and then he's injured for a large period of the season as well, which kind of forced guys like Josh Norman, Diablo Lenore, Ambry Thomas.
The moves that we want to avoid are having Josh Norman on the team. People
exactly.
like that, you know.
Yeah. Fernando, I liked the Tarvarius Ward signing, and I liked it when he intercepted CeeDee Lamb in the end zone. He's talented. He's a talented corner. I'm excited to see what
he had 11 pass breakups last year, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is good. That's a good amount.
Yeah, 100%. Arden Key is also a free agent. The 49ers haven't signed and has not signed elsewhere. Do you see him coming back? Do you see him going elsewhere, kind of banking on this?
Potentially. I think that they're very optimistic about Javon Kinlaw's chances of coming back healthy from that second knee surgery. The ongoing reports are that he still is pain-free in that knee. And if he can stay that way, then he'll finally be able to it seems like there was an actual structural problem, and clearing that up, maybe you open him up to actually fulfilling his potential, or at least starting to. And then the need for the crazy depth they've had at defensive tackle becomes a little bit less. But Arden Key is definitely a low-cost veteran that you could potentially bring back for sure.
Yeah. A lot of people were kind of upset that they let DJ Jones walk, and they're, I don't want to say banking on Javon Kinlaw, but kind of putting more of their eggs in his basket. And they're like, this guy can't stay healthy. And I like that you brought that up there, because the surgeon came out and said after the surgery, we feel like we were able to address and resolve the underlying issues that were kind of causing this problem.
Which means that they found what they thought was causing it.
Yeah.
It's like one thing if they're like, well, hopefully this whatever, but they specifically said, we think we found the issue. And like, that means that they saw an issue. And that's always something that, you hope for when they go in there looking for those kind of things.
And I think he'll be good. I think I'm banking on the surgeon. I think they're going to get it corrected. And if he comes back, I mean, we saw the difference from when he got injured and had to leave the lineup last season.
Yeah.
The run defense took a huge nosedive, and then they put Eric Armstead in the middle, and it kind of came back up. But he was a fantastic, DT. Fernando's asking if the Niners should bring back Kerry Hyder. Had a great year in 2020.
No.
Yeah.
And this is like a flash in the pan. This is like, people are like, we got to bring back Kerry Hyder. I'm like, no, you don't. He's a product of the system. Anybody who plays across from, certain players is going to be effective. And you didn't have Bosa last year, but you still had Eric Armstead, and you did have Kinlaw for a solid portion of it. And those two guys are going to draw attention. And I mean, he had a good season. He did. But a lot of that is defensive scheme and the way the 49ers attack. And when he got that deal from the Seahawks, it was just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it. To me, it's a similar situation with this team is, think about Samson Ebukam, who never had any sacks, and this year he had some sacks, right? Arden Key had some sacks. Jordan Willis had some sacks. This team seems to, opposite an obvious stud like Nick Bosa, this team seems to do like it does for running backs with defensive linemen. And that's make them overplay what their actual talent level is. And once they're on their own and they have to prove it on their own without the benefit of the scheme or the players around them, it becomes more difficult. And even without a guy like Nick Bosa, you cannot overemphasize the impact and the somewhat easing of your job that comes when you have the core behind you as well. A Fred Warner, a Dre Greenlaw, an Azeez Al-Shaair, that makes your job a little bit easier, because those guys are run fitting on run plays and things like that, where your job in Kerry Hyder's case was the wide nine was just like, your job is to pin your ears back and go get the quarterback. And when that's your only responsibility, then you're able to do that, and that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be able to rematch that. I feel like there's a lot of people, everybody has their flash in the pan story, right? And I think this is just another one of them.
Yeah, 100% agree. And especially with Chris Kursrick being the coach, he's kind of known for getting talent out of just about anyone, getting the best production out of anyone. We saw it with guys like Jordan Willis. Going back to Kerry Hyder, Arden Key. These guys came in here, Samson Ebukam, and were kind of relatively, I don't want to say busts, but did not live up to expectations. And they come in here and just completely exceed all expectations, at least from the fans' perspective. And Kerry Hyder.
By the way, don't underestimate this team's proclivity for being a little too loyal to players. Yeah. Don't expect a big edge signing, because I fully believe that they're going to intend to run it back under the assumption that D4 is going to be healthy. I'm just telling you guys right now, don't be disappointed.
Okay, let's get into D Ford, because I shared the other night, I think it was Thursday night, the guy doesn't post anything on social media. And the past week or two, he's been kind of posting clips and pictures of his physique, which are clearly screenshots of old pictures, which I think is hilarious because he couldn't even crop out the date. But I don't know, maybe there's something there. I'm not betting on it at all, but it seems like he's at least trying to get back into the mindset, or either that or trying to get the fans back excited for something. But man, if D Ford could just play half the games any game, I think would be a huge plus.
If he could just even be a rotational third down rusher.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think we're all a little surprised.
Just play like 150 snaps a year, dude.
Yeah. Just play on third down. How about that?
Right.
Just play on third down.
Just third down
Yeah.
Just third down passing situations. Don't get in there on 3rd and 1. Who gives a shit? Right? 3rd and long. That's all you got to play.
I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk about that. Also, it's his birthday today, which is kind of crazy to talk about because I just saw it right now. But yeah, I just hope he can bring something because if not, that's just money the Niners are paying for somebody to sit on the bench. So
I mean, that bill is going to come due eventually, and they restructured his deal again.
Yep.
So that tells me that they want to keep him around.
Yep. Hunk Fat, what you drink, Zach? I tweeted about this. This is that Fruity Pebble protein shake. So it's very, very good. It's delicious. Tastes just like the milk after your Fruity Pebbles bowl of cereal. There's a good edge class in the draft, guys. Yeah. Solid class.
That's cool. They have bigger needs.
I was going to say, I mean, if you think the Niners should address it in the draft, maybe, but I don't. What are your thoughts on the state of the 49ers safety position? Tart still a free agent. It's looking like they're not bringing him back. Adam Costello asked, what are your thoughts, Matt?
I'm a little concerned about that second safety spot. Can Hufanga step up? Are they planning to put Odom back there? Is there a guy that's in the works that we don't know? Or are they going to wait to see how the market shakes out for Tart and maybe they bring him back on a vet minimum? We just don't know at this point, and it's a little bit of a worry. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, but I feel like they have to make one more move. I don't think they're done yet.
Yeah, I agree. I hope they're not banking on Hufanga because I know he's a fan favorite. I know everybody loves the energy and he trained with Troy Polamalu. He's very rough. And from what we saw last season, when they would take Tart out willingly and put Hufanga in there, it was ugly. I mean, and he's a great guy, great special teamer.
I mean, that being said, he did pick up that fumble and put it in the end zone. So
yeah, special teams, fantastic. Like he said, his goal was to be a Pro Bowl or All Pro. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Special teamer. He very well could be that. Starting caliber safety, I don't know.
Yeah,
might be too much to ask of him. They signed a decent safety. I think Tart comes back Smoke Monday in the 4th. Yeah. The safety they signed, though, is particularly for special teams. I think he did play some safety this year.
And he played pretty well from what I heard in the spot duty. But yeah, he's primarily a special teams guy.
Yeah. 49er Media said it was yesterday. I'm pretty sure maybe D Ford's birthday. If so, happy belated. Fernando. Okay. Looks like there will be a quarterback battle between Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. No way in hell.
They can't afford that. Not for their team. Otherwise, we're going to be looking at a Kyler Murray Arizona Cardinals situation, but with like the entire locker room where everybody's going to be split.
If they do this, John Lynch should go. Kyle Shanahan deserves to be reprimanded. I don't know how. I wouldn't fire him, but it's just incompetence at its finest if they do this. Going back to last season, it would be a mess. I understand why they traded up, and then drafted Trey Lance last season because they, going into this year, probably looked ahead and knew we were going to need a quarterback. We're going to move off of Jimmy this season if we can. And looking ahead at the class, there's almost no one we feel is good enough to make that trade up.
If Trey Lance was in this class, he'd go number 1.
Without a doubt. But with that being said, I still think they should have moved to Trey Lance last year, and it just caused all this drama. I don't know if they couldn't have moved Jimmy last year or whatever the case was, but now trying to do that again.
I mean, and the worry, right? Why did Kyle say that they drafted Trey Lance? Because Jimmy doesn't stay healthy. And guess what? Another offseason where Jimmy's not going to get any work because he's injured.
And what are they saying? He'll come back in July?
I just don't see the battle there. I don't see the battle.
Saying timetable for return is like July, right?
Yeah. Well, and the other piece of this, too, is that they gave Nick Sudfeld a fully guaranteed contract. It's $2 million, but $2 million is $2 million. You know what I mean? Like, you don't do that for a guy who you're like, oh, yeah, he's going to be a 3.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they're banking on Nick Sudfeld being the second.
Nate Sudfeld. Not that it matters.
Nate, whatever. One of those guys. One of those end names.
Fernando, why is Jimmy still on the team, Matt and Zach? I don't understand that. I'm already tired of him being on the team. He can't stay healthy.
Because they think they can get something for him that they can't. They're the anti-Patriots, whereas Bill Belichick's like, we're trading, and doesn't even call the player by the name. He calls him the number or whatever. He's like, we're trading 75. Get him out of here, right? They did it with so many guys. They did it with Chandler Jones. They did it with, so many of their other pieces, and they do it like a year early. The 49ers are the opposite, where it's like, no, this is mine. I got to keep it. I love this. And if you won't love it as much as I do, I can't give it to you. Right. And so they're overplaying their hand. They think that Jimmy Garoppolo has the same sway around the league that he does in their locker room, and he doesn't. Nobody wants him. Yep. And they're going to have to come to terms with that eventually and be like, finally make a move. Otherwise, they're just going to be, their jobs are going to be in jeopardy if they don't move him. If this plays out the way that it has so far, if it continues to, it's going to be an issue going forward.
I agree. It's just too messy. It really is just too messy outside of the financial aspects, outside of everything else that actually is on the books. But personally, interpersonally, with the team, with the quarterback competition, the coaches, it's too messy.
Right. They look sloppy, and it's going to come back to bite them in future years when free agents are like, do I want to go to San Francisco? I don't know, man. Look how they dealt with that whole quarterback situation. They do not look like a buttoned up operation right now, and that's a problem.
And you said it earlier. It looks like they were completely overestimating Jimmy Garoppolo's value going into this offseason, acting like they had the pick of the litter as to where they wanted to send him and for what they wanted to get back in return. Well, just about every quarterback has moved, has signed, and Jimmy Garoppolo is still here sitting on a platter. Nobody even wants to, send a penny for him. It really is unfortunate. And if Middlecoff's reporting that they were offered a second-round pick and they didn't take it, that's just atrocious. It really is atrocious.
And the way it makes me feel is that it was the Commanders that offered that.
Yeah, I could see it. Do you think Jimmy said no?
Because they gave up something similar for Carson Wentz, who was also like just a busted quarterback.
Do you think that he would have said no to that, Jimmy? Because it sounded like they were trying to abide by what he was willing to go to as well. Do you think he was the reason why that trade wouldn't go through?
Maybe.
I know it's speculation, but
maybe. But at the same time, you can't make the move until the new league year anyway. And then by then, Jimmy's no trade contract is up, and it's like, all right, fuck it. Like, too bad.
Yeah. This good point here, Ace, bro. We've talked about this as well. The Niners have won this trade for Jimmy Garoppolo.
And I said this last week too.
You did. You
don't have to win it twice.
No, just move on. Whatever it takes to move on, eat the cap, whatever you got to do, move on, because you've already gotten all of the juice out of this berry. There's nothing left to squeeze. Just go. Super chat from Fernando. Thank you very much. Zach and Matt, if we're the GM, would you pay $25 million for a quarterback named Jimmy Garoppolo? Also, I bet his teammates are wondering why Jimmy hasn't been traded.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't pay him $25 million.
No.
If I was the GM, I would have taken that second round deal if it was real. And if I called around for 2 months after the season and nobody was interested, I would have cut him by the start of free agency and just eaten the injury guarantee.
Same.
Because you still get $16 million in cap space on top of what you can restructure and get under. So that's what I would have done.
Yeah. Not only that, but an opposing general manager, no way in hell am I paying that for Jimmy Garoppolo. I've seen his tape. I've seen what it is. And it looks like the secret is out on him, and opposing teams know, hey, Kyle Shanahan and Deebo Samuel and Elijah Mitchell basically prop this guy up to this level. Could he make some key throws at key moments? Yeah. Yes. But if we count on him to be the guy to lead us, we're going to be in a pretty crappy situation in a couple of years. And we're probably going to have to be looking for another quarterback anyway. So why are we paying top tier money to a guy who's at very best going to be a bridge? It doesn't make sense financially for another team to do that. And I think that's where the 49ers front office was kind of mistaken. I think they were I think they're expecting a team to see all of the best of Jimmy with none of the downside and be like, okay, cool. There's not enough starting quarterbacks in the league as it is. Let's go get one.
Yeah.
Well, turns out this was the 1 year where the NFL looked like the NBA, and every single big name free agent that could have moved, or not even free agent, key player that could have moved, basically did, aside from Aaron Rodgers. So it's tough. It really
Although
is
Aaron
tough.
Rodgers got paid. So
he got paid big.
I mean, $50 million a year now for him.
Yep. Ace Bro, I'm so tired about talking Jimmy on the podcast, Twitter, and TV. Same.
I know. So am I. So
Same.
am I. And that's why I want him to move so bad, so that we can report to you that he's moved. We can give our thoughts and then never talk about him again until like the 49ers play whatever team he's on.
Yeah. I agree.
I'm tired of it too. I really am. And every day that he's still on the team is another day that I'm just like, man, what are they doing?
Yep. It's tough. It really is tough. We're going to be wrapping things up here shortly, guys. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, help us grow the channel. We're super close to 2,000 subscribers. Once we get there, we're going to give away a 49ers jersey. Could be you rocking it. We've given away like 7 or 8 already, so could be you next. Hit subscribe. Matt, how would you grade the 49ers first week of free agency?
C-.
Okay.
C-. Some talent walked out the door. Not the right talent. And that's the biggest issue. Is Jimmy Garoppolo still on this roster? You're not getting anything better than a C- from me. I like the Ward signing. I like the Odom signing. I like the Ray McLeod signing. I like the signings that they made. I just felt like they could have done more. And they're going to have to find a taker for Jimmy Garoppolo, but it's that contract. It reminds me of the Padres, man. They want to get rid of Eric Hosmer so bad, but he's a super mediocre player with a big contract, and nobody wants him. And that's this situation here. So nothing more than a C- for me. They're barely passing. They're barely treading water at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough. And guys, drop your grade in the comments. I want to see what you guys think of their first week of free agency. How would you grade it? It's tough to give them a B or better. Honestly, the signings that they have made, the select few, they're good signings, and I like them right now. It's tough to say who wins free agency in March, of course, but looking forward, projecting, I think they're key signings that they needed desperately. With that being said, you made a great point, and talent walked out, and I think the amount of talent that left does not match the amount of talent that they brought in. Are they counting on the draft to kind of supplant that? Maybe. Were they expecting that all along, knowing that Lakin and DJ were going to get huge paydays? Probably. But I still, with that being said, I'd give him a C. I'd give him a C, just flat C, because it's all right. You know, it wasn't fantastic. They didn't blow it out of the water. Jimmy Garoppolo, like you said, is still on the roster. If they would have moved Jimmy prior to the start of free agency, I would B. Solid B.
Yeah.
But
I'm with you there.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It really is tough. We've seen a lot of players talk about the NFC getting easier. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. The NFC took a big nosedive. Notwithstanding Tom Brady's like 3-second retirement. But I mean, you look, Seattle is significantly worse. Arizona looks like it's in shambles. The Packers are significantly worse. I mean, they don't even have like a wide receiver 2 on their roster, let alone anything else, because Valdez-Scantling still rumored to the 40 mixers, as we call them in the chat, because they're always in the mix for a certain player. You know, their best receiver on the roster is Alan Lazard, which is, it's pretty bad. I don't see how the Packers are going to be what they were. The NFC East sucks. The NFC South sucks. Like, I mean, yeah, it's you have the Rams, you have the 49ers, and I mean, really not much else in my opinion. I mean, the Cowboys are fine, I guess, but they got rid of Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
So the Bucks are fine, but Ali Marpet retires and they lose the guard. I can't remember his name.
Jensen?
Alex Kappa?
Oh, they lost him too. That's right. Yeah.
So that line gets significantly worse for Brady, who can't move. We don't know how that's going to play out. I just don't feel like the NFC is that great. And you look over on the AFC side, and they're stacked. I mean, how many of the top quarterbacks not playing the AFC? Yeah. Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, just all these guys, man. I ain't scared of the Packers. I was
gonna say, if
what's Aaron Rodgers' record against the Packers in the playoffs?
Against the Niners.
Yeah, 0 for 4 or 5 now.
Yeah,
I ain't worried about the Packers. They're not going to do anything. He has nobody to throw to.
Yeah. Not only that, but if Jimmy Garoppolo can get it done.
I mean,
I think Trey Lance
But
can
I
get it
mean,
done.
Devontae Adams was the dude that always chewed up the 49ers. Nobody else really did.
No.
So who are we worried about now?
I'm not worried about anyone.
I'm not worried
Aaron
about nobody
Rodgers
on that Packers
is
squad.
solid, or is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but he can't catch the ball he's throwing, and they haven't made any splash signings. They don't have the money to. Maybe they're going to address it in the draft, but as of now,
Aaron Rodgers proved to me that he's more about getting paid than he is about winning.
Yeah,
plain and simple.
The report came out that because everybody was like, "Oh my God, Devontae got traded. Aaron Rodgers is going to be pissed." And then it came out like, "No, he knew.
He's like
he was going to
go going in." Yeah.
So it is what it is. But I agree. I think the NFC got easier. The fact that Deshaun Watson didn't get traded to a team like the Saints or the Panthers, that also keeps the NFC easier. Russell Wilson gets out of the NFC. I mean, you broke it all down, and the path is kind of clearing up for the 49ers, for Trey Lance to kind of establish a dominance now. It's going to be, like you said,
it's the perfect time. It's going to be a down year in the division where the Rams are the only team that is really standing in your way. In terms of the division, the rest of the NFC is weak. Yeah, you have to play. People in the chat are talking about playing the AFC West. That's fine. I mean, the Raiders are going to be the worst team in that division. They're going to finish last. Their defense stinks. They give up like 30 points a game. Like, I'm not worried about them. The rest of the AFC West is going to be tough for sure. But at the end of the day, the 49ers are going to be who the 49ers are. And that's a very well-rounded team. They just have to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo's contract so they can bolster the rest of the roster.
Yeah, I agree. I'm
trying to go to that Las Vegas game, though.
That stadium looks insane.
I'm trying to go to that so bad. Their tickets are so expensive, though.
Oh, I bet. Fernando, we beat the Packers 2012, 2013, 2020, and 2022. Yep. Exactly. Adam said he's going to that Las Vegas game as well. That's cool.
Yeah.
Said earlier in the year, this is about money for Rodgers. He wanted to be the highest paid quarterback.
It is, and he proved it. Like, where a guy like Tom Brady takes less than, Tom Brady was making less money than Jimmy Garoppolo was. And that tells you something. He's more about the winning. It helps that his wife makes like 3 times what he makes per year, but at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was going to say, Aaron Rodgers, I don't know if they're together or not, but Shailene Woodley's no bum either. She's making good money.
Yeah, that's a weird situation, huh?
Yeah, but it is what it is. Any final thoughts here, Matt, before we close things out?
I have been to Las Vegas. I go to Las Vegas like at least once or twice a year. Yeah. I love Las Vegas. Good food. To close us out, man, the 49ers, they're right there. They're on the precipice of something special. They just have to, again, this first Jimmy Garoppolo domino, as soon as they tip that over, all doors will open and they'll be able to figure out the true direction of this team. But if they're right now, they're treating it like double dutch. They don't know when to just jump in and go for it. And they're hesitating. And that is going to cause a divide in the team. It's going to cause a divide in the direction of the team. It's going to cause a divide with the players in the team. It's unfortunate, but if they can just commit to Trey Lance and just, again, get Jimmy Garoppolo out of town by release or by trade, whatever you got to do. And I think it needs to happen quick. I think it needs to happen by the draft. At this point, the draft is the next milestone. And, if it doesn't happen by the draft, then I think we're looking at a real possibility of Jimmy Garoppolo being on the roster going into training camp, which would be a disaster. So it's imperative for them to get something done.
Yeah, I agree. This year, the offseason, I know that we've talked about it, they didn't make any huge signings. They didn't, blow it out of the park. But it kind of reminds me of, and don't hate me because I'm going to say this and I don't want to make it compare it like that. But when they signed Torrey Smith, and it was like the 49ers needed a wide receiver that could stretch the field. And they went, and it was just all the stars aligning. They got Torrey Smith. That's kind of how it feels like with Tarvarius Ward. Maybe it's not the same extent of a caliber player that Torrey Smith was coming out of Baltimore, but Tarvarius Ward is kind of that up-and-coming cornerback. He's younger. He's talented. The stars were there. The signs were there that the Niners needed a player like him, and they went out and got him. We said it kind of all offseason and going into the year that the cornerback position is likely their biggest area of need, and their big signing was at the cornerback position. So I like what they did. What they do in the draft, excuse me, I think is going to be key in how we view them going forward as a
I mean,
contender.
they have 4 picks within inside of the top 150.
Yeah.
So those comp picks helped because one of the thirds is going to Miami for the Trey Lance trade, but that still leaves them with 2 third-rounders, which is massive.
Yeah. I agree. And also they get comp picks for Mike McDaniel, right? So they get one this year and one next year, if I remember correctly. So that's also big. It's also big. Guys, I think that's going to do it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode of the Red and Gold Standard podcast. Hit like, hit subscribe. Like I said, we're trying to get 2,000 subscribers so we can give away a 49ers jersey. Hit subscribe. It could be you wearing it next season.
Absolutely. Thank you, as always, for joining us. I know it's a kind of a weird time for the 49ers. We're going to see what they do going forward. And join us here next week. We're going to bring you week 2 of free agency. So with that being in mind, thank you, as always, for joining us. We love having you here. Follow us on all our socials. Like this video. Like Zach said, we want to give away that jersey. Just let us do it, man. So keeping that in mind, until next time, go Niners.